Welcome to the Fashion Insiders podcast. This is your source for straight-talking, no-fluff fashion business conversations that add real value to the way passionate fashion entrepreneurs live, work, and thrive. Having the courage to start your own fashion brand and business, design, develop, and manufacture your products can be a tough and lonely process. It may not be easy, but it can be simple. I'm your host, Desi, and I'm here to show you how to optimize your performance as a fashion entrepreneur and brand owner so that you can launch and grow a fashion business that is profit-rich, efficient, and can scale online and offline. And when done right, it allows you to generate a real tangible wealth for yourself and others. Let's go. Hi, Polly.
Hi, Desi. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, thank you for joining me. Let's start with what you are doing now and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, it's been a long and winding journey. It started out with a degree in psychology. It then went through a foray into fashion styling, fashion PR. Then it pivoted to advertising. It went through a career as a wedding photographer. And then I became a coach and healer. So it's been a long and winding path, but right now I am a success coach and I help creative entrepreneurs, I help spiritual entrepreneurs start and grow businesses that make a difference in the world and that help them create abundance.
How amazing. Well, we'll circle back to that, but let's go back a minute into your time when you were involved in fashion. What were you doing then?
Yeah, it's really interesting because your invitation to come on this podcast is I've opened an old wardrobe door that's been closed for a while. And I was trying to think, when did this all start? And I remember being sort of 12, 13 years old and getting copies of Vogue and just being fascinated. You know, it was like a door to another world. It was pure escapism, these places, these clothes, this beauty, you know, it just magnetized me in. And I came from a background where I was being schooled to go to university and get a good job. So doing creative things wasn't really an option or part of the agenda. And I won a place at art school and I won a place at university. And my parents said to me, we will only support you if you go to university. So kind of my creative dreams ended then. And I went to university. I really didn't apply myself very well. I did come out with a good degree, which is a bit of a miracle. But I started to really actually follow my creative passions then. So I started, photography was my hobby. I started shooting bands for a living. Then I started getting professional work whilst I was at university. And that love of photography just grew and grew. And after university, I decided I wanted to come to London and study fashion. So I enrolled on a fashion promotion course, which covered photography, fashion journalism, fashion promotion. And I really, really loved it. But again, I just still didn't quite see, like, how do you make a living doing this? I didn't know anybody that did anything creative. It seemed to me that you had to work for free forever. In fact, I toyed with being a fashion photographer really early on, but I just couldn't understand how I could pay my rent and do this. So I was interning at Marie Claire magazine. I was helping the editor, and then I got a position in the fashion department there. And I used to get to go on shoots. I had my legs appear in Marie Claire. Apparently my knuckles are too wrinkly. The things you find out about yourself.
So you couldn't be a hand model?
I couldn't be a hand model, no. Apparently I have too many lines on my knuckles. But I had a sort of exposure to this world and I really enjoyed it. But and I don't know how much you know about the fashion magazine world, but you have just a few positions in the fashion department on each title. And when people are in that position, they stay in it for a long time. So you need some kind of divine timing and huge amounts of patience to wait for that position to vacate. And so
It's quite funny because when someone moves, it's like a domino effect. You see a real movement around all the magazines.
I can imagine.
At least it used to be like that. I think there's far fewer magazines now, so you don't see that so much.
Yeah. So I was waiting for that domino to fall. And then I was like, I can't keep working in a bar in the evenings and at the magazine during the day. Like, I need a position. And they helped me get my first job in fashion PR. And so that was my first job out of university. And it wasn't really the right fit for me, shall we say. There were some lovely perks. I got free Jimmy Choos, which I adored. The working environment was very beautiful, but I was kind of underutilized in the role. I wasn't mentally stimulated. There wasn't a great deal of opportunity for growth, and I actually found it quite boring. And so I decided to leap and resign. And that's when I was led through a series of coincidences to my next path in advertising. So I think that the fashion path, to me, it didn't seem very easy to get into. It seemed difficult. And I realized that actually during the day, what was really important was how I felt about the work I was doing, not necessarily the industry I was in. And I do think in another lifetime, there could have been a great job in the fashion industry for me. At that time, it wasn't coming to me, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled in the work that I was doing. But I went off in advertising. I discovered that earning money and having money and spending money on clothes was mighty fulfilling as well. But I did circle back, because I think when you're a creative and you have these creative dreams, you can kind of divert from them or ignore them, but you always end up coming back to them. There's that part of you that's calling for expression, that wants to be born into a product or an idea or a way of expressing yourself, and that will always come back. And so when I was 28, I took the leap from my corporate job and I went back to study again. And started with interior design, realized that is not my forte. Definitely not an interior designer. I love interiors. It's not my destiny to design them. I found it actually very stressful. And I ended up going back into photography. And again, I got drawn back into fashion photography, doing tests with the model agencies, doing some fashion work. I lived with a bunch of fashion students. Because one of the ways I was able to go back and study again was by renting out rooms in my house. So I bought a house in East London and I rented out rooms to other fashion students. So I had some super talented people from St. Martin's in the rooms of my home. So there was this lovely creative hub and energy around me, which I feel was really great in getting me off into this new creative path. I think who you surround yourself with has a big impact on what you feel is possible. And these were women that were really pushing the boundaries from all over the world. We had America, had Japan, Scotland, and it was just a really vibrant and creative time for me.
How amazing, because I think you definitely have some connection to the world of fashion, because even through your style, even though you no longer work in fashion, but your style is really, special and strong and fashionable. People have to go to your Instagram page and see. I love the way you put pink and oranges together and all of that. So obviously there is, you know how they say that when you're bitten by the fashion bug, you always have it. So you've got that bite.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, through my 20s, I was trying to find out, how do I fit into this industry? Is this my industry? Should I be here? How can I be here? And I didn't really get the answers in that industry for me at that time. But I do love to express myself through my clothes. And I think, in fact, I found out once that in a past life, I was a cobbler's child. Oh, no. So I always feel like that accounts for my love of shoes, because it feels like a world that's so close and so intimate to me. And I seem to be around fashion people. When I grew my wedding photography business, by the end of it, I was working almost exclusively for fashion people, shooting their weddings. So I feel like it's been there. It's been a theme, a thread that runs through. Definitely.
So how did you end up when did you leave the world of fashion and transition to being a success coach? And what is a success coach?
Yeah, so that came after my career as a wedding photographer. Partway through my career, I experienced a series of tough personal losses, which affected my business. And I hired a coach to help me get on track. And together we rebranded my business. So it's the visuals again. I fell back in love with my business. And I started securing new clients that lit me up. I raised my rates. And I saw the power of coaching with the impact it had on my photography business, on my creative business. And at the same time, as the universe likes to bring in all sorts of unexpected synchronicities, which I think are available to us if we listen and if we look for the signs and if we're willing to say, hold on, is this significant? This person just came in. The universe sent me a couple of people just when I was learning coaching. So I'd hired a coach. She said, oh, go and study with my mentor. She does a personal development program. And part of that was a coach training. So I disregarded the coach training because by this point, my photography business was on a second wind. It was doing really well. I was working with amazing clients. And there is a lot of aspects of fashion in weddings. So there was a lot of beauty, amazing outfits. I was getting this exposure to this amazing world. And the universe sent me a couple of people and they said, oh, we've heard you're studying coaching. One of them in particular, she said, I want to be your first client. She's an artist in the UK. And she said, you've had an impact on me for far, far, far longer than you know. You don't know me, but this is how you changed my life. And she told me a story of when she was an actress. And then she saw my work and it helped her decide which path to go down. And she became a photographer instead. And she said, I'm going to be your first client. I was like, okay, I guess I'll take a client then. And so I helped her. She's a painter and a photographer. And I helped her with her creative work, with monetizing it, with taking it out to the world, moving past perfectionism, getting clear on how to pitch her work to clients, how to talk about her work. And she had great results. And that kind of gave me the encouragement of actually, this is a path I'm supposed to follow. And I'm always in life, I'm looking for where the doors open. Yeah. Is this door opening? Oh, okay, there's something here to follow. Or is this door closing? A little bit like it did in the fashion magazines. It was like, wow, there's no doors opening. Okay, where do I go now? And so that's basically how I became a coach. I started testing the water and I coached 11 clients for 6 weeks, which was really intense. Wow. I just felt like I was coaching all day, every day. I was used to running around constantly looking for things, photographing. And then I was in this other world where you sit in front of a laptop. And that was definitely a shift. But what it gave me was seeing the impact that coaching and mentoring could have on people. And the feedback I got was so profound. I thought, I can't not do this. This really helps people.
Yeah. I might be wrong, but I don't think that there's that much talk about creative coaches or coaches that teach creatives. I think that a lot of creatives look for business coaches, maybe marketing coaches, something like this, but I don't think they necessarily see the value, and they should, of someone actually coaching them on creativity and how to channel that in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something I specifically do, although what's interesting.
Even back then, I think that there's a value in understanding that world and becoming a coach, because I think that when you're creative, your brain works in a different way. You can't just go to any coach, no?
Yeah, I think what it helps to have someone that thinks the same way as you do and that can understand that. And that's what started happening to me is my coaching business just evolved organically, because other creators would say, oh, I've seen what you did with your business. Yeah. Teach me how to do the same with mine. And it started off with photographers, but then it grew. And then it would be wedding planners. I have actually coached fashion brands. That was one of my accessories brand was one of my earlier clients. Now I'm coaching a jewelry brand. So it's just, I think people look for people they can relate to.
Yeah.
They want to be understood, and they want to feel that you get their pain and their struggles, and that also you're passionate about what they create. And obviously, because I love clothes and jewelry and beautiful things, people can see that that's something I really value.
Now you work as a money mindset coach. Am I right?
Yeah,
So
that's a big part of what I do.
Yeah, so you've transitioned from photography, from the coaching, to now that's how I came across you, because I heard you speak about this through another podcast. But tell me a little bit about that. Why money mindset, and who are the kind of clients that come to you?
Yeah. So it's because of my own struggles, as what we teach is so often what we need to learn. And that was my case. So I never really paid a lot of attention to money when I worked for someone else. So money was just something that came in at the end of the month. It always ran out and there was never enough. And you didn't have to think about taxes or asking for money or pricing. And you just hope you get a bonus at the end of the year. But when I became an entrepreneur, that's when all my money stuff came up, because suddenly I had to price my services. I had to ask for money. I had to negotiate. I had to track my expenses. All of these things were very, very new to me. And it was really quite a big challenge. And I think that the subject of money is such an uncomfortable subject for so many people. And then when you start your own business, you come face to face with this topic of money. And then it triggers things like, well, am I worth that much? We attach our own worth to the rates we charge or the prices we charge. It can bring up fears around having enough or not having enough, because the entrepreneurial path is not a steady income path. It has highs and it has lows. It has dry patches and abundant patches. And I proceeded steadily in my career as a wedding photographer, gradually increasing my rates year by year. But it was when I was in my late 30s and I'd started my coaching training that I discovered this concept of a money mindset. And that's when I really had my biggest breakthroughs, when I discovered that if I changed what I thought, felt, and believed about money, if I changed that, it would have a huge ripple effect out on my business. And that's when things really went on an up level. And it wasn't just money, it was also opportunities. Because when we shift what we feel we're worthy of and what we feel is possible for us around money and around our business, it will also attract in different kinds of opportunities, media opportunities. People start to see us in a different way when we release our limiting beliefs around what we're worth. And I had Martha Stewart Weddings magazine in the US. It had been on my vision board since I started my business. So it was about year 8 or year 9 now. Every year my goals appear in Martha Stewart. I never gave up, even though there was no progress towards it. So once a year, I would submit my best 1 or 2 weddings to them for consideration for publication. And every year they would send a polite email saying, thank you, but no thank you. And year after year, I persisted. And I remember thinking, what do I have to do? And when I started working on my money mindset and changing what I felt I was capable of, when I started releasing some of the limiting beliefs that were connected to money, they actually reached out to me and they asked to interview me for an article they were writing. And they asked me a few questions and that was it, and didn't hear anything again. And I thought, oh. And then about 2 months later, they published a big feature in the magazine called The World's Best Wedding Photographers. Wow. And I was listed as there were me and my friend, there were 2 of us in Europe. That was it. Wow. And I was absolutely shocked, because I had this idea of how that goal would come to me. Yep. There was the picture. I would have my photos in the magazine. I would have shot the wedding, but the universe sometimes brings us our goals in ways that are totally unexpected. And so there I was, literally me in Martha Stewart Weddings magazine.
Wow.
And then that led to them starting to commission me to shoot weddings in Europe for the magazine. And that's when I found out actually the chance of me getting accepted were extremely slim, because they mainly commission. They mainly collaborate with people on weddings.
Right.
The ones that are featured in the magazines. I'm glad I didn't know that, because I think naivety is an asset. Absolutely. I think when we don't know, we can just go in and we try things and we ask for things and we approach people that we don't know. Maybe we shouldn't be approaching, or maybe we don't stand a chance. And I think when you follow your intuition and have a degree of naivety, that can support you in some ways. So that led to me actually getting the cover of Martha Stewart magazine a year later and having 12 pages of my work in the magazine and then one being chosen for the cover. So my dream came to me, but in the most unexpected way.
But it happened.
It happened. And I always say to people, like, you don't have to think about how. I had no connections. I had no connections. I was not known in that country. I had one of the biggest money blocks is visibility, is being scared.
So I was going to ask you to talk about this, but maybe we should just run through quickly. I know you have a list there's a few money blocks.
Sure.
And maybe then we can just focus on visibility, because I think that's a big one for creatives, for some type of creatives, not everyone.
Yeah. So I've worked with a lot of creatives. So I started my money program about 3.5 years ago, and I take people on a journey, releasing different money blocks. And I've had a lot of creatives come through that program. We've had musicians, artists, actors, designers, all makers, craftspeople, all sorts of creatives. And there's a few things that I've noticed really block creatives. The first thing is this starving artist myth, that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be torturous, that 1 in a million gets picked and most people fail. And so I've also found when I do past life work, and I found that when I work with creatives, a lot of the time they've been an apprentice in past lives, which is how you would have used to. If you were a painter, you would have been in the atelier working under the master for 40 years before you got successful or you were known. I found that people have done creative things before in past lives, and maybe they've been overlooked or not recognized, or they were literally the starving artist, incredibly talented, never got discovered, or they sacrificed everything for their art. And so we have to really break down this myth of the starving artist and know that we live in a different time now. This is a time where there are resources to support creative people, where there's help available. We have the internet. There's ways to find out things. And there is also abundance in our world. There's more and more people are able to invest in creative output, in paintings, in fashion, in accessories. There's more and more affluence in the world, and people are available for and interested in unique and special products and products with a story. And so I think that's my second piece, is this block that there's just not enough money in the world, or there's not enough clients, there's not enough people that want to buy your clothes, your shoes, your bags. So it's getting in that mindset that actually there's a lot of abundance in the world, and you can align with it and you can tap into it by the way that you're thinking. And so as a creative, you're looking both to let go of all these ideas about what it means to be a creative, but then you're also looking to bring in this abundance that actually there are a lot of people that want to buy beautiful things out there. There are a lot of people that want to buy products and things that have got a story, that have got meaning, that have got love, that have got uniqueness and individuality in them. So those are a couple of them. And there's visibility, as we mentioned, because I always say money needs to find you. Money needs to be able to see you. And if money can't see you, how can it come to you? You might be the most brilliant designer, and there you are hidden away, creating these beautiful things, but nobody knows about you. And so you're going to stay poor. And so we have to get over this fear of judgment, this fear of being criticized, judged, because it's going to happen. It is just part of life. We can never make it go away. But we have to be able to learn to handle different opinions and learn to have confidence in our ideas and in what we believe, so that we can go out and share without feeling we're going to be knocked down when someone says, I don't like that, or someone says nothing. A lot of my clients worry more about what if I don't hear anything. Actually, to get no reception, no feedback is worse than criticism. And I think that when you put your heart and soul into your creativity, it almost becomes a part of you. And I had to, with my photography, I had to learn to detach, because it was like it was my baby. And it was like, no, it's separate to you. And I had to learn to believe in my work, even, if the client wasn't happy, because when you're shooting a wedding, they're not always happy. I remember a bride saying to me once, I used to do slideshows in person to show them their images. And so she came to my home and she watched the slideshow and I could tell something wasn't right. And she said, oh my God, the pictures are beautiful. And I said, and she said, but I hate my hair. I wasn't happy with it on the day and I hate it now. And there was nothing I could do about that. Nothing. Mm-hmm. I'd done my best. The pictures were beautiful, but I couldn't make her love them. And so developing that strength and resilience in our creative voice, and the resilience to keep going if we don't get the response we want, I think that's really, really important. And being able to detach your self-worth from what people think of your work. It's really essential because you're never going to please everyone. As I always tell my clients, like 1 in 10 people are going to dislike you. No matter how sweet, how kind, how talented, how loving, how generous you are, 1 in 10 people just will not like you. That's statistically, and we can't do anything about that. So it's learning to believe in ourselves, learning to strengthen our self-worth, and learning to focus on the things that are working. And this is just such a huge part. As you know, you need so much resilience to be an entrepreneur, let alone one in fashion.
Yeah. You mentioned this starving mindset of a starving artist. How does that come to us? I mean, is it something that, like, for example, you mentioned that you come from a family who did not believe, well, they wanted you to go to university, and I went through exactly the same thing. I had to study politics and economics. We had a bad example in the family of an artist, so I wasn't allowed to go down that path. Is this how these money blocks get formed then? Because we are being told as we grow up that you can't survive on your own through being creative.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And thank you for sharing that about the member in the family. I think that there's so many exciting and interesting ways I can answer this. I'm going to start with what you shared. I think that, we go back a few generations and many of us come from poverty, or we come from a time when there was war. Mm-hmm. And so as human beings, we're hardwired to look out for fear and things that could go wrong. So we're always looking for the safest option. How can I be safe? What's the safest option? How can I provide for my family? Will we have enough food? Will we be safe? Can we stay in the land we live in? These things, they may not be like in us right now because we live pretty safe. Well, up to the pandemic, we lived pretty safe and uneventful lives in this generation. But going back 1 or 2 generations, our families came from a lot of hardship and a lot of cases. And so we're hardwired to look for safety. So our parents come in. My parents grew up during a war. They want their children to be safe, and they perceive a job working for a big company to be the best source of safety.
Yeah.
And so they're hardwired. They're like, but there might not be enough money because they grew up with rationing when there wasn't enough of anything, even food. And so they think, well, be safe, be sensible, be cautious, be frugal, and you'll be okay.
I grew up in communist Bulgaria when the word entrepreneur did not even exist. And if you were self-employed, it's because you didn't fit in the mode of, of the time, being a party member, being employed by the government. So you were an outcast if you were self-employed. So imagine the baggage that must bring.
Totally. And the thing is, Desi, that this isn't your story, right? But you inherit in your DNA your beliefs from your parents, their fears, their worries, their ideas about the world. And this is where it gets interesting, because the stuff that we're carrying, a lot of it's come down ancestrally and generationally. Just like you might have similar hair or nose or eyes to your mother, you can also have similar beliefs. And then you've got your beliefs about the world, how it works now. And then you've got your mother's beliefs, which are really not that helpful, that say, don't be an artist, it's irresponsible, it'll all go wrong, or it's dangerous. And so we have to identify and release the limiting beliefs that we've got from our family. And they also come from culture, the environment you grow up in, what it said about artists, what it said about earning money, what it said about getting a job in the world. And in the media as well plays a part. And there's a lot of myths around artists and creatives, like they're crazy, they're irresponsible, There's a lot of myths around it's hard to make money. That's very, very easy to buy into because it taps into that fear of survival that we've got since we were cavemen and women. And then we're like, oh, yes, what if I can't survive? What if I can't put food on the table and a roof over my head? I'd better not do anything creative. I mean, like now I look back, I can see these fears were playing out in me in my 20s about wanting to do that, but not knowing how I could make a living. And if I'd had the knowledge that I had kind of a decade later in my late 30s, I probably would have made different decisions, because I know that when you follow what's truly aligned for you, the universe always shows up and supports you. So the money is always available, but I didn't know that at that time. I was still coming from a fear-based mindset, which said, I've got to choose the money first, and then hopefully I'll enjoy what I do. I didn't know that I could do what I loved and then find a way for the money to come to me, and that somehow the universe would support me. I found that out when I was doing photography. So I was a late bloomer, as I say.
So, you said you get a lot of creatives join your programs. What would you say is the biggest mindset block connected to money that you see creatives?
It's interesting. I'm thinking of someone we'd just started Money Beautifully last week. So we have a new intake of people, and I'm thinking of one.
So Money Beautifully is your program.
That's my program for clearing your money blocks. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the one that a lot of creatives get drawn to. And I'm thinking of someone that's joined that program. And I'm thinking of this person in particular, but she's representative of a lot of people. It's a cautiousness. Oh. It's the fear the money's going to run out. And so not thinking big enough. And we need to be able to think big to have big dreams. And I would say that a lot of the time small businesses are afraid to invest in themselves and their growth, or they're afraid to invest in help to get to where they want to be. So they hold on really tightly in case the money runs out. And then they don't get to grow and scale. And they don't get the right support and advice to grow. Because they're holding on, trying to do it all on their own, trying to figure it all out, trying to be the marketeer. They're trying to be the artist. They're trying to be the accountant, all these different roles. I remember when I first became a photographer, my teacher saying to me, oh, by the way, you'll spend 5% of your time taking pictures and 95% of your time marketing, advertising, being an accountant. And I was like, wow, that's a wake-up call.
It's true, though. I mean, when you're one-man band, a small brand just starting out, etc., you have to wear all these hats. You have to do all of these things.
Yeah, you do. And then there comes a point at which you have to let go and be willing to take risks and allow people to help you get there quicker.
And I guess that's where, if you have the visibility mindset block, that's where it really starts going against you, because you're wearing all these hats. But if you are more visible, you start bringing in more sales, I suppose, because you get more exposure, which would allow you to drop some of the hats and focus.
Yeah, and I would say that the visibility is a low priority for a lot of creatives, right? Because they became a creative because of the love of doing whatever they do. Designing, making, creating, and the actually putting the work out into the world can be pretty far down the bottom of the list. So they can spend ages perfecting the work. Two of the blocks that I cover in my program are perfectionism and procrastination. We have a week on those, because those blocks stop people getting the work out there into the world, because they'll say, oh, I'm not ready to put it out yet because it's not finished yet. It's not perfect yet. I'm still working on it. Or I'm worried about what people think, so I won't put it out there yet. And when this work is not out in the world, it can't be making money. We can't be getting feedback. We can't be refining, course correcting. So I think the perfectionist piece holds people back. I think the fear of what people think, the fear of being judged, because your creative work is almost like a part of you.
Completely, yeah.
You have to separate that out, and then it becomes easier to put it out into the world.
It's almost like a child that you don't want others to criticize and pass judgment on.
Totally. And I, even now, like I paint, but I don't put my work out there. because I'm not available for any judgment. It is my child.
Well, I used to have a jewelry brand, and I used to go to trade shows, and I used to just not sell it. I would, wait for people to come and talk to me and ask to buy it, but I wasn't actively selling it because I thought it was beautiful. I didn't have to persuade people how beautiful it was. And I see this happens a lot of the clients I work with, they're really struggling to be visible. And I can see how that's really holding them back.
Yeah, it is. I definitely could have grown my creative business faster and bigger and quicker had I understood more about visibility. But I think it's a journey. It's a journey because putting ourselves out there is so tied to our self-worth. It's so tied to what we feel about ourselves. And we don't really grow up feeling like, hey, I'm amazing, I'm the best, I'm worthy, I'm good enough. These are things that we learn through the journey of life and through active choices. Most of us were not parented by people with great self-esteem. No, I don't remember my mother ever saying, I feel amazing today, I'm brilliant, I can do anything. She was always putting other people first and always like, I'll have second best, and always very modest about her abilities. So I feel as we go along this journey, we have to learn healthy self-worth and how to look after ourselves.
Yeah. So interesting, that topic. What would you say is like one thing that maybe creatives can do to help themselves to get on the road of overcoming some of these money mindset blocks? Yeah. I mean, aside from joining a program and working, because like you identified, there's not one, it's many. And I also know that as you develop your career and as a person, as a human being, as we evolve, we resolve something, but something else pops up. So there's always something to work on. But what would you say from all your experience is something that you can, give us as a tip that can get us going?
Yeah, there's a few things that are important to get going that when you do them will really make a difference. The first one is to change what you focus on. So especially when you're newer, it's really easy to focus on like, wow, there's a lot of people out there doing what I do. Wow, who's going to buy my products? It's very easy to focus on scarcity and lack or fear, because that's where, as I said earlier, that's where we naturally go to. So you have to start switching the focus. And the easiest way to do that is through appreciation and gratitude of yourself and everything that's in your life. So that's really, really simple to do. I could just sit here now and say, I'm so grateful for the sunshine. I'm so grateful for all the clients I already have. I'm so grateful for that amazing coach that's helping me move forwards in my life. I'm being really grateful and appreciative for what we've already got. That puts us into a I have mindset rather than I have not mindset. So that starts to switch us. And once we start to feel like, actually, I've got, I'm doing well, I've got a lot of good things, life is good, we start attracting more of the good things. We start attracting people to help us, or ideas come through, how to make more money. So that's one thing, is to switch your focus, and gratitude and appreciation is the easiest thing. Let's see what else. So many things that I can share. I think it's almost detaching, like we talked about, yourself from your work. It's like not making your work a reflection, not making your work a part of you. That would be the easiest way to say. So start to detach from your work and be willing to let your work go out into the world at a good enough stage. So when I was working with the painter who was my first client, I always remember talking about finishing, letting 80% be good enough. And when I've gone quicker in my life, it's been when I can allow things to go out imperfectly and a little bit unfinished, because they can go out and bring joy to people. They can go out and bring happiness to people, make a difference to people without having to be completely perfect. So just allowing that work to go out, even if it is still a bit of a work in progress and you're still refining it, because it can go out, be making a difference and making money as it is right now.
There's this saying that money likes speed.
Yeah. Interesting.
That whole concept of, getting it out there, getting feedback and then improving it and reiterating, but just like getting it faster to market rather than holding on and perfecting.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, because these creative things need to be released to the world. They need to be out there working their magic. And once you're in action, you'll start to get the feedback you need to refine and grow.
Yeah. And we see, it's funny because in fashion, we try to perfect, but in technology, they release, these beta programs, these like bare bones of softwares, and get users to use them, get feedback, reiterate. So I think we need to look at other industries and learn how to.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great example. I love that. Yeah, we let the consumers have the bugs. Yeah. They have no shame about releasing new things and figuring it out as they go along. Yeah.
So where can, if creatives listen to this podcast, which they will, where can they find you? How can they get started?
So the best way to get started is to sign up for my Money Magnet Toolkit.
We can put the link in the show notes.
So if you sign up for my Money Magnet Toolkit, you can get access to a couple of audios. One helps you attract more clients, and the other one helps you start to shift your money blocks and get in that place of gratitude that we talked about. Meditational visualization is a really powerful way to do that. And the great thing is, if you're a creative, you find it easier to visualize than most people. So having a practice each day where you picture the future reality, you picture your successful business, you picture the life you want to create through your business, being able to connect with that every day will bring it to you quicker. So that will be the first place to start. Sign up for the Money Magnet Toolkit. And then on social media, I'm on Instagram at Polly_Alexander.
Amazing. We'll put all of these links in the show notes. So just to wrap up, I want to ask you two final questions. What does success mean to you? How do you define it?
That's such an interesting question to answer. And every time I'm asked it, I'm like, what's true for me today? And because I think success evolves. If you'd asked me a year ago or 5 years ago, I would have given you a different answer. So for me now, success is about earning great money, doing what I love, and having the freedom to live my life in alignment with my values. So some of my values are beauty, freedom, spirituality. And so I want to be able to live a life that's structured around those, a life that allows me a lot of freedom, a life that has a lot of beauty in it. So in the environment, in how I dress, in how I run my business, and in the landscape around me. And I think feeling joy and feeling peace, that makes me feel successful.
That sounds divine. That sounds really nice. And last question, what is a piece of advice maybe you were given by someone in the past that you feel like has really helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I haven't been given a lot of advice, to be honest,
really?
Until I actually started discovering coaching and investing in people to give me advice. I grew up with very little advice, which in a way was really good, because a lot of people grow up with a pressure and being told what they should be doing. And I grew up with completely the opposite.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Which I now see actually as a gift in itself. But I think the thing that really, when I first started on my path of personal development in a bigger way, rather than just doing the occasional yoga class and reading the occasional book, when I really started to commit to a big up level and take control of my destiny, my mentor at the time said to me, done is better than perfect. After I'd spent a good 6 months on my first coaching website. Websites, fonts, visuals, those things are my areas of perfectionism where I can get caught up in. And I remember when she said that to me, and I started letting go of my projects sooner, I started putting them out, then the money started coming in. Even though I was still studying coaching, I took clients. I had enough to give to people to make a difference. Even if you know that your greatest work is still to come, start putting out the work that you have available right now. It's going to bring joy to people. It's going to bring happiness.
It's that visibility component again.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Polly. That's been amazing. So interesting.
Thank you, Desi. Thank you for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Pleasure. I hope that whoever listens to this podcast can find you and get help and, well, not help, but support and develop their mindset and be able to show themselves more. And
yeah, I'm passionate about people being able to earn a good living as a creative.
Me too.
It's really, really important. The world needs creativity and creative people. They bring so much wealth and richness and wisdom to the world. And so I think it's really important that they are given support and allowed to see that they can live abundant lives and be creative. It doesn't have to be a choice between, fulfillment and satisfaction and money, that the two can come together, and money can be a tool for getting your ideas out in the world.
Yeah, so, and it's not a dirty word in creativity. It's not a question of either you have money or you're creative. You can have both.
Exactly. Take a stand for the and. I love saying that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Hey, thank you for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you want to know more about any information referred to in this episode, we've got all the links listed in the show notes, which you can find over at www.fashioninsiders.co/podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and conversation, make sure to subscribe to the show and get new episodes downloaded as soon as they come out. And if you have any questions, I'd love to help you. Email me your questions to insider@fashioninsiders.co or just send me a DM over on Instagram. Finally, I'd really appreciate it if you could open up the app on your phone and leave me a super quick rating or review. Your reviews tell iTunes that this is a great podcast and it's worthwhile listening and sharing. And that can help me and my guests reach even more people. So that's it for today. I'll be back soon with another episode. And until then, thank you again for listening.